So we're going to talk about what's involved in gold plating the trigger. We got a rusty old beater A5 here. We're going to re-glue this gun and all, but today we're just going to talk about gold plating and what it takes to get this trigger out in order to gold plate. It's quite an operation to do that. There's a lot of guys that want their triggers plated and they pull them out themselves, and that's good. I'm going to show you how to do that. If you can't get the trigger out, well, then you generally got to send me the whole receiver. But here's what you got to do to get this trigger out of this A5. First off, we remove our lock screws that are locking our trigger plate screws, and we remove the trigger plate. Now, we've talked about this before, but it takes a good screwdriver. We make our own just so we don't burr screws. If you have a real nice A5 that's pretty clean and just needs the trigger gold plated, you don't want to burr those screws up when you remove them. I don't have to be too careful here removing screws because we're going to glue them all. And when we glue them, of course, we take the burrs off. And so there, the trigger plate just dropped out. So now we have to remove the trigger. Remove your carrier spring. This is a newer style. The old style carrier spring is in the side of the receiver, and it won't come out. So you remove your safety sear by pushing down on the plunger and sliding it off. Now came to say the plunger. Now drop your hammer and remove the mainspring. A lot of guys, when they go to take the stock off these guns, they think this mainspring screws what holds the stock on. They take it out. Then you're really in trouble because you got to take the thing all the way out to replace it. But anyway, we're going to remove the mainspring screw. And we're going to talk about the trigger safety spring next. So out comes the mainspring. Now, there's a couple different styles of trigger safety spring. This is the newer style that's held in with a pin. This pin holds down this flat spring. This spring operates the detent to the safety, and it's a trigger return spring. So this particular one, we have to just drive out this little small pin and drive out this little pin. Hang on to things when you pull this pin out because things are going to try to take off on you. Now comes your trigger and safety spring. This little center spring is what works the there goes the phone, but they're going to get that, so we can move on with our little video here. Excuse me. So this center spring is what works the goes against the detent ball and gives you a snap to your safety. And these two little ears here go against the trigger. I'll show you when I pull it out here. So now we're going to remove. If you're just taking your trigger out, you don't necessarily need to take out your hammer. If you're just trying to remove the trigger, that's not necessary. And it also helps to have a bench block around. That makes a big difference when you go to dismantle one of these guns. I'm going to take the hammer out because I'm bluing the gun and just getting it out of the way. Now, remove the trigger, drive the pin out. Now comes the trigger. Push your safety out. Now there's a detent ball somewhere and it's stuck up in here in the grease. Out comes the detent ball. Now the detent ball is what is riding on this center spring here. Now these break all the time. It's common. The new Japanese spring is much better. They actually staggered the slots in this on the center spring tab, and so it makes it less likely to break. These things like to break right through here where they're weak. So anyway, we have dismantled and taken out our trigger, and our trigger is ready for gold plating. Now when we gold plate this trigger, we're going to clean it all up good, get all this crud out and everything up on top of here, and we're going to polish it and buff it. Now this has pitting in it, which means we're going to have to put some paper on it, some emery cloth, and get the pits out. You can't gold plate over pits. It's just like bluing. You can't blue over pitting. You can't gold plate over pitting. It has to come out. So we will commence the